Old Irish is the name given to the oldest form of the Goidelic languages for which extensive written texts are extant. It was used from c.AD 600 to 900. The primary contemporary texts are dated c.AD 700 to 850. By AD 900 the language had already transitioned into Early Middle Irish. Some Old Irish texts date from the 10th century, although these are presumably copies of texts composed at an earlier time period. Old Irish is thus the ancestor of modern Irish, Manx, and Scottish Gaelic. Old Irish is known for having a particularly complex system of morphology and especially of allomorphy, as well as a complex sound system involving grammatically significant consonant mutations to the initial consonant of a word. Initial consonant mutation must have been present in at least late Common Celtic because this distinguishing feature has survived with grammatical significance in both modern Welsh and Breton, and the extinct Cornish language also featured, because the languages belong to the Brittonic branch of the Celtic language group. Initial mutation must predate the split in the development paths of the Brittonic and Goidelic languages. No mutations are, however, attested in Gaulish material, so a parallel evolution of the phenomenon in the Neo-Celtic languages is also possible. Much of the complex allomorphy has been lost, but the rich sound system has been maintained with little change in the modern languages. Contemporary Old Irish scholarship is still greatly influenced by the works of a small number of scholars active in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, such as Rudolf Thurnason and Osborne Bergen. Notable characteristics: the complex systems of allomorphy and consonant mutations. Probably the two most salient characteristics of Old Irish compared with other Old Indo-European languages have been mentioned above. Other notable characteristics are these: a system of conjugated prepositions that is unusual in Indo-European languages. Dim from me, dit from you, da from him, die from her, diib from them. There is a great deal of allomorphy here as well, in fixed object prepositions, which are inserted between the verb stem and its prefix. If a verb lacks any prefixes, a dummy prefix is normally added. Special verbal conjugations are used to signal the beginning of a relative clause. Old Irish also preserves most aspects of the complicated Proto-Indo-European system of morphology. Nouns and adjectives are declined in 3 genders, 3 numbers, and 5 cases. Most pi-noun stem classes are maintained. Most of the complexities of pi verbal conjugation are also maintained, and there are new complexities introduced by various sound changes. Consonant mutations. In the system of initial consonant mutations, the initial consonant of a word must be modified in one or another way, depending on the nature of the preceding word. Lateg, late, towards a house versus fotheg, fotheta, under a house, iteg, ide, into a house, with the alternation t tilde theta tilde d in the initial consonant of teg, house, triggered by the preceding preposition. There are 4 types of mutation: no change, lenition, nasalization, aspiration. In general, there is no way to predict from the form of a given word the type of mutation that it will trigger. In many cases, the mutation has grammatical significance. A teg, ate, her house, versus a theg, a theta, his house, versus a teg, ade, the house. Here, the mutation is the only thing distinguishing the 3 meanings, her versus his versus their, of the possessive pronoun a. Mutations can also signal various other grammatical features. Noun case in frbecc frbe, small man, versus fmbecc frmbe, small man, versus dafrbecc daove, two small men. Here with an alternation b tilde v tilde mb, signaling the different cases of the otherwise identical form fur. Another grammatical feature are signaled by mutations is relative clause attachment, in which lenition indicates the beginning of a relative clause, often in place of any explicit relative pronoun. Verbal allomorphy. The system of Old Irish allomorphy, particularly in verbal conjugation, is notoriously complex and unpredictable, even among the already highly complex verbal morphology of other Old Indo-European languages. Old Irish preserves most aspects of the already quite complex Proto-Indo-European verbal system and even adds major new complexities from the interaction of a series of sound changes with shifting stress positions. Verbs are conjugated in 3 persons, 2 numbers, 3 voices, 3 moods, and 4 tenses and 3 aspects: aorist, perfective and imperfective. Most complexities of pi-verbal conjugation are still present: primary and secondary endings, thematic and athematic endings, active and deponent endings, and innovative passive endings. Multiple verb stems for each verb, which must be memorized as principal parts, and numerous means of verb stem formation. Also, there are different conjugations used when no versus 1 prefix precedes, e.g., bir, I carry, bered, he carries, versus ni by I do not carry, ni bear, he does not carry, or da by I bring, give, da bear, he brings, gives. When 2 or more prefixes precede the verb, it gets even more complex, with a special conjunct prototonic conjugation required, e.g., ni tabur, I do not bring, give, ni taber, he does not bring, give. In such cases, the stem merges with all but the first prefix in a complex and often unpredictable fashion. De barat, they bring, give, versus ni tai brat, they do not bring, give, but as barat, they say, versus near prat, they do not say. In the S-subjunctive, the allomorphy is even more extreme, especially in the third person singular. Indicative is boy, he refuses, versus neopained, he does not refuse. Subjunctive as bow, he may refuse, versus neop, he may not refuse. In many cases, from a synchronic perspective, the changes appear at a random. He surpasses, versus ni deskagi, he does not surpass, or even unrecognizable. However, the forms usually result from a series of regular sound changes. Classification. Old Irish was the only member of the Goidelic, Gaelic branch of the Celtic languages, which is, in turn, a subfamily of the wider Indo-European language family that also includes the Slavonic, Italic, Romance, Indo-Aryan and Germanic subfamilies, along with several others. Old Irish is the ancestor of all modern Goidelic languages, Modern Irish, Scottish Gaelic and Manx. A still older form of Irish is known as Primitive Irish. Fragments of Primitive Irish, mainly personal names, are known from inscriptions on stone written in the Ogham alphabet. The inscriptions date from about the 4th to the 6th centuries. Primitive Irish appears to have been very close to Common Celtic, the ancestor of all Celtic languages, and it had a lot of the characteristics of other archaic Indo-European languages. Phonology. Consonants. The consonant inventory of Old Irish is shown in the chart below. The complexity of Old Irish phonology is from a 4-way split of phonemes inherited from Primitive Irish, with both a fortis lenis and a broad slender distinction arising from historical changes. The sounds fv theta thx hvnlr are the broad lenis equivalents of broad fortis pbt dksmnlr, likewise for the slender equivalents. Some details of Old Irish phonetics are not known. Per second may have been pronounced or, as in Modern Irish, per hour may have been the same sound as per hour and, or x. The precise articulation of the fortis sonorants n, n, l, l, r, r is unknown, but they were probably longer, tenser and generally more strongly articulated than the lenis counterparts n, n, l, l, r, r, as in the Modern Irish dialects that still possess a 4-way distinction in the coronal nasals and laterals. N and L may have been pronounced N respectively. The difference between R and R may have been that the former were trills while the latter were flaps. Vowels. Old Irish had distinctive vowel length in both monophthongs and diphthongs. Short diphthongs were monomoraic, taking up the same amount of time as short vowels, while long diphthongs were bimoraic, the same as long vowels. The inventory of Old Irish long vowels changed significantly over the Old Irish period, but the short vowels changed much less. The following short vowels existed. 1. The short diphthong A may have existed very early in the Old Irish period, but not later on. Archaic Old Irish had the following inventory of long vowels. 1. Both E and E were normally written E-acute but must have been pronounced differently because they have different origins and distinct outcomes in later Old Irish. E stems from Proto-Celtic *E or from E in words borrowed from Latin. E generally stems from compensatory lengthening of short *E because of loss of the following consonant or a directly following vowel in hiatus. It is generally thought that E was higher than E. Perhaps E was while E was. They are clearly distinguished in later Old Irish, in which E becomes Iowa. E becomes E-acute in all circumstances. Furthermore, E is subject to U affection, becoming E-acute UU, while E is not. 2. A similar distinction may have existed between O and O, both written O, and stemming respectively from former diphthongs and from compensatory lengthening. However, in later Old Irish both sounds appear usually as UA, sometimes as O, and it is unclear whether O existed as a separate sound any time in the Old Irish period. 3. OW existed only in early archaic Old Irish. Afterwards it merged into O. Neither sound occurred before another consonant, and both sounds became O in later Old Irish. The late O does not develop into UA, suggesting that O and GT, O post-dated O and GT, UA. Later Old Irish had the following inventory of long vowels. 1. Early Old Irish I and OI merged in later Old Irish. It is unclear what the resulting sound was, as scribes continued to use both I and OI to indicate the merged sound. The choice of OI in the table above is somewhat arbitrary. The distribution of short vowels in unstressed syllables is a little complicated. All short vowels may appear in absolutely final position after both broad and slender consonants. The front vowels, E and I, are often spelled A and I after broad consonants, which might indicate a retracted pronunciation here, perhaps something like AND. All 10 possibilities are shown in the following examples. The distribution of short vowels in unstressed syllables, other than when absolutely final, was quite restricted. It is usually thought that there were only 2 allowed phonemes, and U. The phoneme U tended to occur when the following syllable contained an asterisk U in Proto-Celtic and LT, PC asterisk delish do, or after a broad labial. The phoneme occurred in other circumstances. The occurrence of the 2 phonemes was generally unrelated to the nature of the corresponding Proto-Celtic vowel, which could be any monophthong, long or short. Long vowels also occur in unstressed syllables. However, they rarely reflect Proto-Celtic long vowels, which were shortened prior to the deletion of inner syllables. Rather, they originate in one of the following ways: from the late resolution of a hiatus of 2 adjacent vowels, from compensatory lengthening in response to loss of a consonant, from assimilation of an unstressed vowel to a corresponding long-stressed vowel, from late compounding, from lengthening of short vowels before unlenited per meter NL, are still in progress in Old Irish. Stress. Stress is generally on the first syllable of a word. However, in verbs it occurs on the second syllable when the first syllable is eclectic. In such cases, the unstressed prefix is indicated in grammatical works with the following center dot. Orthography. As with most medieval languages, the orthography of Old Irish is not fixed, so the following statements are to be taken as generalizations only. Individual manuscripts may vary greatly from these guidelines. The Old Irish alphabet consists of the following 18 letters of the Latin alphabet: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, L, M, N, O, P, R, S, T, U. In addition, the acute accent and the superdot are used as diacritics with certain letters. The acute accent indicates a long vowel. The following are long vowels: A, E, acute, I, O, U. The superdot indicates the lenition of F and S. F is silent, S is pronounced per hour. The superdot is also sometimes used on M and N, with no change in pronunciation, when these letters are used to mark the nasalization mutation. M, N, dot. Some digraphs are also used. The letter I is placed after a vowel letter to indicate that the following consonant was slender. I, A, Oi, Ui, I, E, acute I, Oi, Ui. The letter H is placed after C, T, P to indicate a fricative, CH, TH, PH. The diphthongs are also indicated by digraphs. A, I, Iowa, Ui, O, O, Oi, Ua, E, acute U, Our, U, O. U. The following table indicates the broad pronunciation of various consonant letters in various environments. Notes. A dash in an entry indicates that the respective consonant sound is spelled differently under the respective mutation, and so the indicated consonant letter does not occur then. See the next two entries. Lenited C, P, T is spelled CH, X, PH, F, TH, theta, respectively. Nasalized B, D, G is spelled M, B, M, B, N, D, N, D, N, G, N, respectively. In some cases, lenited F and S is spelled with a superdot. When initial S stemmed from primitive Irish *SW, its lenited version is F. Dot. The slender variants of the above consonants occur in the following environments: before a written E, E acute I, after a written UN, when not followed by a vowel letter. Dot. Although Old Irish has both a sound per hour and a letter H, there is no consistent relationship between the two. Vowel initial words are sometimes written with an unpronounced H, especially if they are very short or if they need to be emphasized. On the other hand, words that begin with the sound per hour are usually written without it, a or a ho or her gold. If the sound and the spelling co-occur, it is by coincidence, as nihid ni hath. It is not. After a vowel or L, N, or other letter C, P, T can stand for either voice-to-voiceless stops. They can also be written double with either value. Geminate consonants appear to have existed at the beginning of the Old Irish period but were simplified by the end, as is generally reflected by the spelling generally, although double ul, mm, and nr were eventually repurposed to indicate non-lenited variants of those sounds in certain positions. After a vowel, the letters B, D, G stand for the fricatives V, T, H, or the slender equivalents. After M, B is a stop, but after D, L and R, it is a fricative. After N and R, D is a stop. After N, L, and R, G is usually a stop, but it is a fricative in a few words. After vowels, M is usually a fricative, but sometimes a stop, in which case it is also often written double. The digraphs CH, PH, TH do not occur in word initial position except under lenition, but wherever they occur, they are pronounced X, F, theta. The letters L, N, and R are generally written double when they indicate the tense sonorants, single when they indicate the lax sonorants. Originally, it reflected an actual difference between single and geminate consonants. As tense sonorants in many positions developed from geminates, the gemination was lost. The use of written double consonants was repurposed to indicate tense sonorants. Doubly written consonants of this sort do not not occur in positions where tense sonorants developed from non-geminated Proto-Celtic sonorants. Written vowels a, I, e, I in post-stress syllables all seem to represent phonemic. The particular vowel that appears is determined by the quality of the surrounding consonants and has no relation to the etymological vowel quality. It seems likely that spelling variations reflected allophonic variations in the pronunciation of